All right, today we are jumping right into a really fascinating and honestly a pretty complex moment in the history of the subcontinent, the Khilafat Movement. It's a wild story about how a war thousands of miles away in Europe managed to spark this enormous movement of faith, politics, and protest right here in India.
But hey, before we get into the thick of it, if this explainer helps you out with your studies, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button and subscribe to Spotwork Learning. We've got a lot more content coming that's built specifically for your syllabus.
So you've got to ask, right? How on earth does a war in Europe set off this huge protest movement all the way in India? It sounds kind of strange, but the answer? Well, it all comes down to an institution that held an unbelievable amount of power, both spiritual and political, over millions of people.
And that brings us to our first section, the Caliphate in Peril. This is really ground zero for the whole story, because to get what the Khilafat movement was all about, you first have to understand the Caliphate. See, the Khilafah, or the Caliphate, wasn't just some fancy political title. No, it was a massive deal. For millions of Sunni Muslims around the world, and especially in India, the Ottoman Sultan was their caliph. He was their spiritual leader, a living, breathing symbol of global Muslim unity.
So check out how things went downhill, and fast. In 1914, World War I kicks off, and the Ottoman Empire makes a fateful choice. They side against Britain. By 1918, the war's over, and they've lost, badly. The winners, the Allied powers, they start carving up the empire. And suddenly, the whole institution of the Caliphate, this thing that's been around for centuries, is on the chopping block.
Now, this direct threat to their spiritual leader, well, it absolutely lit a fire under people in India. Which brings us to Section 2, where we're going to see how all that deep concern and anxiety turned into a massive, organized movement. Okay, O-level students, listen up. This is for you. This is a core question straight from your syllabus. What did the Khilafat movement actually want? What were their main goals? What were they trying to achieve?
At the Caliphate Conference in 1918, they laid out 3 key objectives. Number 1, protect the holy places of Islam, which were under Ottoman control at the time. Number 2, keep the Caliphate going as that all-important symbol of unity. And number 3, make sure the Ottoman Empire itself wasn't broken up into little pieces.
So they had their goals. Great. But a goal without a plan is just a wish, right? So how are they going to make it happen? That's what we'll cover in Section 3, Actions and Alliances. This is where they stop just talking and start doing. At first, they tried the polite route, diplomacy. Leaders from the movement actually sailed to England to talk directly to the British government. They were basically saying, hey, remember you promised to respect our religious feelings during the war? But nope. Their pleas just fell on deaf ears. So, with the British shutting them down, the movement looked for friends closer to home. And boy, did they find a big one. They formed this incredibly powerful, historic alliance with Mahatma Gandhi and the Indian National Congress. Together, they kicked off the non-cooperation movement, a massive, united campaign of nonviolent protest. And Gandhi himself knew just how momentous this was. He called it, and this is a famous quote, an opportunity of uniting Hindus and Mohammedans as would not arise in 100 years. I mean, wow. And for a while, it really worked. They created this incredibly powerful, unified front against the British. But not everyone was on the same page. At the very same time, another, much more extreme idea started to gain traction, the Hijrat Movement. Some religious leaders declared that British India was no longer a suitable place for Muslims to live and encouraged a mass migration to Afghanistan. This was a decision that would end in absolute tragedy. And that tragedy is a big piece of the puzzle in our final section, Section 4, Why the Movement Failed. Because despite all that incredible energy, that initially unity, the whole thing just started to fall apart. So that first major blow was the Hijrat Movement. It turned into a complete humanitarian disaster. Afghanistan just couldn't handle the sheer number of people showing up, so they slammed their borders shut. I mean, can you imagine? Thousands of families had sold everything they owned, their homes, their land, and now they were just stranded, ruined. And you can bet they were feeling pretty let down by the movement's leadership. Then came the next blow. In 1922, a protest turned violent in a place called Chauri Chaura. When Gandhi heard about the violence, he was horrified. And just like that, he called off the entire non-cooperation movement.
In an instant, the Khilafat movement was left high and dry, without its most powerful political ally. So now the alliance is shattered, morale is in the gutter, and you know who's watching all this? The British government. They saw their opening and they took it. They moved in swiftly, arrested all the key Khilafat leaders, and left the whole campaign completely disorganized and rudderless. So you've got a humanitarian disaster, the loss of a key ally, and the arrest of all your leaders. The movement was on its knees. But the final knockout punch, you are not going to believe where it came from. It came from Turkey, the very country they were trying to save. That's right. In 1924, the new leader of Turkey, a man named Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, just got rid of the Caliphate. He saw it as a relic of the past, something holding back his vision of a modern, secular Turkey. And with the stroke of a pen, the entire reason the Khilafat movement even existed just vanished into thin air. So let's quickly run through that domino effect one more time. First, the Hijrat disaster absolutely shatters morale. Second, Gandhi pulls his support, leaving the movement totally isolated. Third, the British come in and arrest the leadership. And finally, the killer blow. Turkey itself abolishes the Caliphate, making the entire struggle pointless. This right here is a perfect summary for your revision notes. The key reasons for failure: the withdrawal of Congress, the disaster of the Hijrat movement, the arrest of key leaders, and of course, the main goal becoming totally obsolete once the Caliphate was gone. So yeah, if you're just looking at their stated goals, the movement was a complete failure. It didn't save the Caliphate, it didn't save the Ottoman Empire, but, and this is a really big but, if you just label it a failure and move on, you're missing its profound long-term impact. Which leads us to the final big question. What was the Khilafat movement's true legacy? Yes, it failed in its immediate goals, but it was also like a training ground. It taught Indian Muslims invaluable lessons about political mobilization, about organization, lessons that would prove to be absolutely crucial on the long road to independence. So what do you think? What was its most significant impact? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks for watching.